There are any number of dumb ways a city can allocate valuable downtown real estate, but near the top of the list has to be parking garages. A brief exploration of structured parking and some thoughts on how to prevent these kinds of calamities in your own city, coming up next. This is CityNerd, weekly content on cities and transportation. Viewer suggested topics, always welcome. And I do get a lot of comments along the lines of, man, CityNerd, you're good at identifying and describing problems, but you never tell us what to do about them. So stick with me today because I promise I will get there later in the video. Now, if you've been following this channel, you know I like to do local case studies that have broad applications to cities in the US and probably a lot of other countries too. And today that means we're going to downtown Las Vegas, which if you know anything about at all, it's because of this. Fremont Street, which was the epicenter of legalized gambling in the US before that epicenter started gradually moving south along Las Vegas Boulevard over the latter half of the 20th century. But downtown Vegas has the good bones that just about any US city's downtown has. It has a connected grid, which isn't all that easy to find in the rest of Greater Las Vegas. It is a very young city, even by US standards, and a lot of downtown did come of age in the automobile era. So you still have things like drive-through wedding chapels and vintage motels, which may or may not get rehabbed. I mean, there's Ferguson's, which has been rehabbed into a collection of makers spaces and independent shops. Definitely worth a visit if you come to town, by the way. And you've got wholesale redevelopment of entire blocks, like the downtown container park. Doesn't every city have a shipping container-based food cart pod at this point? Anyway, a lot of the revitalization you're looking at was spearheaded by Tony Hsieh, the former Zappos CEO. And that's a story I don't even have time to get into today, but it is fascinating if you want to read up on it. And increasingly, you see restaurants and shops that are more oriented to a downtown urban setting, either in rehabbed buildings or brand new structures that do contribute to a Main Street vibe. Heck, there's even a great bookstore in downtown Vegas now, if that gives you a sense of the direction things are headed. And a lot of that same energy carries south into the Arts District before you get to the north end of the resort corridor on Las Vegas Boulevard. But all this sits alongside the legacy land uses downtown is known for. Older casinos and newer ones that are accustomed to all of their customers arriving by car. Some of the casinos still have surface parking, which stands pretty empty most times of day and is maybe most useful for road testing driverless cars. But for the most part, the land use that really jumps out at you when you walk around downtown Las Vegas is just parking garages. Lots and lots of parking garages. And Vegas isn't that far outside the norm for US cities when it comes to having lots of structured parking. After all, downtown land is valuable, and isn't this a more efficient use of land than a surface parking lot? Well, that's a tricky question, and I'll come back to it towards the end of the video. The thing is, though, I wasn't in downtown Vegas to look at just any parking garage. No, I wanted to see the creme de la creme. The parking garage voted the best parking structure by the Southwest Parking and Transportation Association. And to do that, I had to go to the Circa, downtown's new high-rise resort. The Circa is super nice, especially for downtown. I mean, the sports book alone is pretty phenomenal. I'm not really into gambling though. I was here for one thing and one thing only, and that was this. The Garage Mahal. Because you know I'm not going to miss an award-winning parking garage. The way you're probably going to access it is through the Circa, so we go up the escalator and across the skywalk, which crosses South Main Street. And I don't know, the Garage Mahal is nice. It's got pretty standard modern parking garage features, maybe with some slightly higher end finishes. Naming it after a universally acknowledged masterwork of Indo-Islamic architecture is maybe, I don't know, a bit over the top. Uncomfortably close to blasphemy. I understand this is Vegas, the national capital of anything goes, but still. So Circa does try to provide an elevated experience for the discerning vehicle storage customer. And the centerpiece of the whole thing, I think, is the ground floor, which functions as a valet station complete with velvet rope, but also a combined ride-hail and taxi pickup drop-off, and a sort of hangar for VIP limos. Is it really worthy of a name that conjures up images of a UNESCO World Heritage Site? I don't know, it's a tough call, but at least we're finally building something that's been sorely lacking in a lot of downtowns, and that is luxury housing for cars. Okay, this is usually the point in the video where I do some pretty blatant self-promotion to try to goose the algo and direct you toward my Patreon. But today I'm going to change it up and ask that if you're really feeling generous this holiday season, consider donating, if you have the means, to a nonprofit that works on urbanist issues. Easier said than done, right? I mean, if you've been watching this channel, one thing I hope I've been impressing on you is that all these things I talk about, street design, transit, land use, safety, walkability, urban design, they're all interrelated. And if you're someone who's looking to get involved in advocacy, the interconnectedness of all these things can make it feel overwhelming to even know where to start. So in keeping with the theme of today's video, might I recommend targeting some resources at one specific issue that has leverage on pretty much every aspect of urbanism and, in my opinion, gives you a lot of bang for your advocacy buck. And that is parking reform. So this is the Parking Reform Network. It's a 501c3 nonprofit with national reach, and the only one, I believe, with a mission focused on this one specific area that really has a strong influence on things we all care about, like housing, climate, and transportation. The network in Parking Reform Network is really important because a lot of what the organization does is coalition and capacity building and connecting advocates with resources that can help accelerate parking reform in their own communities. Just the website itself is a fantastic resource. Like this mandates map that lets you drill down into the details of what's going on with parking reform in over 200 different US cities. It really is such an interesting time on this particular issue. If you follow the news, you've probably noticed that parking mandates are being abolished at an increasing pace. PRN has an important role in that, but also it means thinking about what comes next, like focusing on how cities are going to manage curb space going forward to make sure the parking reforms that are happening get leveraged into good outcomes with minimum backlash. Also, billions of dollars are going to be spent on electric vehicle parking projects in the coming years, and we need to make sure we don't repeat the same mistakes we did with just plain old parking. So there's just a ton of work to be done on this issue. And just to bring it full circle, if you're like me and you live car-free or even car-light, you're subsidizing free parking for everyone else. Public right-of-way on our streets, publicly financed parking garages, additional acreage that pretty much any commercial enterprise is required to own and manage to provide free parking that doesn't benefit you at all if you don't drive. It's absolutely infuriating if you really think about it, and it absolutely demands reform. Anyway, that's my pitch, and I just want to be clear that none of the views on parking that I espouse in this video are necessarily endorsed by PRN. But I'm fairly confident that they would agree that apartment buildings or condo towers should not look like this. You've got a few of these in downtown Vegas, and I can think of no more starkly visual demonstration of the insanity of minimum parking requirements or parking mandates than a high-rise residential building where the first 5 or 10 stories are just housing for cars. The irony is, downtown is the one place in Vegas that really has the potential to support car-free living. There's a transit center where you can get a bus to just about anywhere, and the transit center houses a bike center that has free secure bike parking, showers, lockers, bike repairs. It's really a great amenity. Downtown has bike share too, and by the way, way more bike parking than you'll find anywhere else in Greater Las Vegas. Also, there's rail, which hasn't seen a passenger train in years. You have to say, downtown Vegas has all the elements you'd want in an area you're trying to densify. You can actually cross a pedestrian bridge over the tracks that, I kid you not, connects two parking garages. But when you get to the other side, you start to see what Las Vegas is trying to build these days when they get to start from scratch. The Smith Center, which hosts all kinds of cultural events, including the Las Vegas Philharmonic and touring Broadway shows, and then the surrounding Symphony Park district, which is still a work in progress and is a bit high-end, but really gives you a sense of how the city is envisioning the downtown of the future. And there is structured parking, but it's a bit better integrated into the district than what you see in the older parts of downtown. And there is lots and lots of bike parking. But even in downtown proper, they have managed to build new high-rise residential buildings that don't have 8-story parking pedestals at the bottom. So I guess when it comes to the future of downtown Vegas, my glass is half full. Look, I can't tell you what the future of parking garages is, but I'd be really nervous about building them at this point. My recent professional experience working on transit-oriented development projects was trying to figure out how to answer endless client questions about how you can design parking garages so they can be repurposed for other uses once the autonomous vehicle revolution hits and we stop needing to store cars in dense, high-demand places. It's all kind of horrifying. There's this basic idea that structured parking is better than surface parking because it's a more efficient use of land. But structured parking costs up to 10 times as much per stall as surface parking, and at least surface parking is like banked land that's easier to redevelop. So a parking garage ends up being expensive shelter for cars at a time when we seem to have more and more actual humans who are unsheltered. Structured parking is expensive just in terms of construction cost, but it gets a lot worse when you think about the opportunity cost of what we could be building on our valuable downtown real estate instead. Okay, that's all I got. Thanks for watching this week, and thanks to all of you, and especially the patrons, for helping make 2022 just a really good year. The direct support has opened up all kinds of possibilities of what I can do with this channel in 2023. So stay tuned. Keep the great topic suggestions coming. I'll probably be back with a new video next week. It just depends how the holidays go, so I'll see you when I see you. Hello, welcome. Clean enough. All right, script.